The deafening silence at the dinner table was broken only by the gentle clink of silverware against china as Sarah's mother cleared her throat, her eyes never meeting her daughter's. "We don't need to discuss your situation at every family gathering," she whispered, the word cancer conspicuously absent as always. Sarah felt the familiar ache spread through her chest, not from the disease ravaging her body, but from the wall of silence her family had built around her illness, brick by brick, each day since her diagnosis. What Sarah couldn't have known that evening was how a chance encounter with a stranger in a hospital waiting room would not only give her the courage to break her silence, but would ultimately become the lifeline that saved her when medicine alone couldn't. Would you have found the strength to speak your truth if everyone you loved begged you to stay silent? Comment below and share your own experiences with finding your voice during difficult times. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us of the healing power of human connection. Sarah stared at the manila folder in her hands, the edges already worn from her constant opening and closing it over the past 6 months. Inside were the papers that had changed everything. Stage 3, ovarian cancer, aggressive, requiring immediate treatment. She remembered sitting across from Dr. Patel, his kind eyes betraying the gravity of his words. "We need to move quickly," Sarah had said, sliding the treatment plan across his desk. "With surgery and aggressive chemotherapy, we have a fighting chance." A fighting chance, the words had echoed in her mind as she drove to her parents' house that evening, rehearsing how to tell them. She'd imagined tears, questions, perhaps even anger, but not silence. "It's probably just a mistake," her father had said after a long pause. "Get a second opinion." Her mother had immediately stood up, smoothing her already perfect skirt. "I'll make some tea. You know, Aunt Linda had a cancer scare once. Turned out to be nothing." And just like that, the conversation had shifted to Aunt Linda's benign cyst from 15 years ago, while Sarah's very real, very malignant cancer was swept aside like crumbs from the dinner table. In the days that followed, Sarah had tried again. She left pamphlets about her specific cancer on the coffee table. She mentioned support groups during Sunday dinner. She even called her sister, Claire, late one night when the fear became too much to bear alone. "I don't think dwelling on it helps, Sarah," Claire had said, her voice tight. "Just focus on getting through the treatments. Positivity is so important." Positivity, as if her cancer cells would retreat if she just smiled more. By the time her surgery date arrived, Sarah had given up trying to discuss it. Her mother drove her to the hospital, chatting brightly about the neighbor's new landscaping. In pre-op, she squeezed Sarah's hand and said, "Everything will be fine." Before turning the conversation to an upcoming church bake sale, Sarah had nodded and smiled. The perfect daughter, even as anesthesia pulled her under. She woke to the news that the cancer had spread further than they'd thought. Dr. Patel's face was grim as he explained. The more intensive chemotherapy regimen they would need to start immediately. "Do you have questions?" he asked. "It helps to talk about what you're facing." Sarah laughed, a hollow sound that hurt her surgical incision. "My family doesn't talk about what I'm facing. They barely acknowledge it." Dr. Patel frowned. "You need support through this, Sarah. If not from family, then perhaps a support group." She had nodded noncommittally, watching her mother approach down the hall, a forced brightness in her expression that Sarah had come to dread. "The doctor said everything went wonderfully," her mother announced, though Dr. Patel had said nothing of the sort. "You'll be back on your feet in no time." Sarah looked between her mother's determined smile and Dr. Patel's concerned frown, feeling the distance between reality and her family's version of it stretch into an unbridgeable chasm. "Sure, Mom," she said quietly, closing her eyes. In no time, Sarah's apartment, once her sanctuary, now felt like a museum of her pre-cancer life. Running shoes she no longer had the energy to wear. Half-finished manuscripts from when she had been working on her novel. A refrigerator filled with food she couldn't keep down after chemo. Her mother came by every Tuesday and Thursday to clean and stock the fridge with bland foods Sarah might be able to stomach. She'd chat about neighborhood gossip, the weather, Claire's children, anything but the elephant in the room. When Sarah's hair began falling out in clumps, her mother simply handed her a beautiful silk scarf without comment. "I found a great wig shop," Sarah ventured one afternoon, as her mother wiped down counters that were already cleaned out. Her mother's hand paused momentarily. "Are you sure that's necessary? The scarves are lovely, and your hair will grow back before you know it." "If I survive," Sarah thought but didn't say. The walls of silence grew thicker with each passing week. At family Sunday dinners, Conversations would halt whenever Sarah entered the room, resuming with forced cheerfulness about neutral topics. When she was too sick to attend, no one mentioned her absence the following week. One evening, as Sarah scrolled through her phone, she found herself on a cancer support forum. Women and men sharing their fears, triumphs, setbacks, and dark humor about the disease that had hijacked their lives. She read for hours, tears streaming down her face at the raw honesty she found there. Her finger hovered over the Join Group button when a text from Claire arrived. "How are you feeling?" A simple question that should have opened the door. "Honestly, pretty awful," Sarah typed back. "Just found this support group online, thinking about joining." Three dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, don't those groups just make people more depressed? Maybe focus on something positive instead. Sarah deleted the support group page and threw her phone across the couch. The following week, she attempted once more to breach the wall. During her sister's visit, "I'm scared about the scan results tomorrow," Sarah admitted as Claire arranged flowers in a vase, a gift from her children who were too busy with school activities to visit their sick aunt. Claire's hands stilled for just a moment. "I'm sure it will be fine. These scans are routine, but what if it's not fine?" Sarah pressed. "What if the chemo isn't working? I need to talk about the possibilities, Claire." Let's not borrow trouble," Claire interrupted, resuming her flower arranging. "Oh, did I tell you Tyler made the honor roll again?" And just like that, the walls stood firm. At night, alone in her bed, Sarah would whisper her fears to the darkness, the only listener that didn't turn away. She wondered if the silence was worse than the cancer itself, this isolation that made her feel like she was disappearing long before the disease might take her. She created a private blog, password protected so her family would never find it. There, she wrote the truth about her pain, her fear, her anger. Words she couldn't speak aloud found their way onto the digital page, a secret rebellion against the conspiracy of silence that surrounded her. "The hardest part isn't the cancer," she wrote one night after a particularly difficult treatment. "It's feeling like I've already died in their eyes, become a ghost they can't acknowledge. I'm still here. I'm still Sarah. Why can't they see me?" No one answered. The walls stood impenetrable as Sarah's strengths, both physical and emotional, continued to ebb away. The hospital waiting room had become as familiar to Sarah as her own living room, the same faded blue chairs, the same stack of outdated magazines, the same muted television in the corner perpetually tuned to a cooking show. Today, her mother had dropped her off with a quick "text me when you're done," before hurrying off to a garden club meeting that Sarah suspected was invented. Sarah checked in with the receptionist and took her usual seat in the corner. Pulling out her e-reader, she was halfway through a paragraph when a voice broke her concentration. "That's a terrible book. The main character dies at the end." Sarah looked up, startled. An older woman with cropped silver hair and bright red glasses was settling into the chair beside her, arranging a colorful knitted shawl around her shoulders. "I'm sorry," Sarah said. "The book you're reading, it's depressing as hell. Though I suppose we can handle depressing, can't we?" The woman tapped her own hospital bracelet. "I'm Elaine, by the way, ovarian, stage 3. 5 years in remission, just here for my checkup." Sarah blinked, caught off guard by the directness. No one in her life spoke so bluntly about cancer. "I'm Sarah. Same. Stage 3 ovarian. 6 months since diagnosis." Elaine nodded, studying her. "First round of chemo, second. They didn't get it all with the first surgery. Brutal. My second round nearly killed me. I told my oncologist I'd rather die of cancer than treatment, but of course, that was just the Taxol talking." Elaine chuckled, as if discussing a bad haircut rather than a near-death experience. Sarah found herself smiling despite her shock. "My family never uses the C word. They act like if we don't talk about it, it might disappear." "Ah, the ostriches." Elaine nodded knowingly. "I had those too. My husband couldn't say cancer for the first year, called it your situation or that business with your ovaries." A laugh escaped Sarah's lips, the sound foreign to her own ears. "That's exactly what my mother says, your situation. As if we have a temporary financial setback instead of malignant cells," Elaine agreed. "How do you deal with it?" "I don't, really," Sarah admitted. "I just go along with it." Elaine's eyes narrowed. "That's not going to work long term, honey. You need people who can handle the truth. It's the only way to stay sane." Before Sarah could respond, a nurse called Elaine's name. That's me, Elaine said, gathering her things. Listen, I run a support group at the community center on Thursday evenings, real people, real talk, none of that your situation nonsense. She pulled a business card from her purse and handed it to Sarah. My number's on there. Call me if you want to talk to someone who won't flinch when you say the word. Cancer. Sarah took the card, turning it over in her hands. I don't think my family would approve. With all due respect, your family isn't the one with cancer. Elaine squeezed Sarah's shoulder. It's your journey. You get to decide how to walk it. As Elaine walked away, Sarah stared at the simple white card with its purple lettering, Elaine Webster, cancer survivor and certified support group facilitator. She slipped it into her pocket just as the nurse called her name. As she followed the woman down the now familiar hallway, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in months, a tiny spark of possibility, a crack in the wall of silence that had surrounded her. Maybe, just maybe, there was another way to face this disease than the lonely path her family had prescribed. Sarah studied her reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the gaunt face that stared back. Her cheekbones protruded sharply beneath her pale skin. The colorful scarf wrapped around her head couldn't disguise the hollowness in her eyes. The latest round of chemo had been brutal, leaving her 20 pounds lighter and infinitely more exhausted. Yet she was expected at her cousin Jenny's baby shower. Another family gathering where her situation would be ignored while everyone pretended not to notice. How she winced when she moved, or how she couldn't eat more than a few bites. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. We're all waiting. Dear, don't forget to bring Jenny's gift. Sarah took a deep breath, applied some blush to her ghostly cheeks, and grabbed the carefully wrapped baby blanket she'd ordered online. She no longer had the energy to shop in person. The drive to her aunt's house took only 15 minutes, but by the time Sarah arrived, she was already drained. The front yard was filled with balloons and a large stork cutout announcing, I tease a boy. Sarah steeled herself before entering the cheerful chaos within. Sarah, you made it. Her Aunt Susan swooped in for a careful hug. Let me get you some punch. You look like you could use something sweet. Sarah smiled thinly. Accepting the punch, she knew she wouldn't drink. The sugar would make her nauseous, but it was easier to hold the cup than explain why she couldn't have it. She made her way to Jenny, who was glowing with 8-month pregnancy health, surrounded by a mountain of gifts. Sarah, I wasn't sure you'd come, Jenny said, accepting the gift with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Wouldn't miss it, Sarah replied. The social script coming automatically. The afternoon progressed in a blur of baby games, present opening, and conversations that carefully skirted around Sarah's health. She found herself sitting beside her Uncle Robert, her father's brother, who had flown in from Arizona for the shower. Sarah, good to see you, he said, patting her hand. You look great. Something inside Sarah, something that had been bending and stretching for months, finally snapped. I don't look great, Uncle Robert, she said, her voice unnaturally calm. I look terrible. I've lost 20 pounds in 2 weeks. My hair is gone. I can barely walk up a flight of stairs without getting winded. The chatter around them dimmed as people began to notice the conversation. Now, Sarah, her mother interjected, appearing at her side with startling speed. Uncle Robert was just being nice. No, he was lying, Sarah said, her voice rising slightly. Everyone here is lying, pretending not to notice I'm sick, pretending the word cancer doesn't exist, pretending that if we all just smile enough, I won't die. The room fell completely silent. Jenny's hand moved protectively to her swollen belly, as if Sarah's cancer might be contagious. Sarah, this isn't the time or place, her father said firmly, from across the room. It never is, Dad. That's the problem. Sarah stood up, her legs shaking. I have cancer, ovarian cancer. Stage 3, it has a name. I have a 30% chance of surviving 5 years. These are facts, not secrets. Her mother grabbed her arm. You're upset. The treatments are making you emotional. Let's get some air. Sarah pulled away. I'm not emotional because of the treatments. I'm emotional because I'm dying, and none of you will even look at me. Really look at me. Her voice broke. I need to talk about what's happening to me. I need to be afraid sometimes. I need to be angry. I need my family to stop treating me like I've already disappeared. She looked around at the shocked faces, at the relatives who suddenly couldn't meet her eyes. Her cousin Jenny was crying silently, one hand still on her belly. I'm sorry, Jenny, Sarah said softly. I didn't mean to ruin your shower. Congratulations on your baby. I hope I get to meet him. With that, she grabbed her purse and walked out, ignoring her mother's calls. She made it to her car before the tears came. Great, heaving sobs that shook her entire body. She sat there, crying, until her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. Mom says to come back inside. Everyone's worried. Sarah stared at the message, then pulled Elaine's card from her wallet. With trembling fingers, she dialed the number. The phone rang 3 times before Elaine answered. Hello. Her voice was clear, direct, just as Sarah remembered. It's Sarah, from the hospital waiting room, a few weeks ago. Sarah wiped tears from her cheeks with her free hand. I don't know if you remember me. Of course I remember you. The woman with the family of ostriches. Elaine's tone softened. What's wrong, honey? You sound upset. The simple acknowledgement of her distress broke something open in Sarah. Words tumbled out the baby shower. Her outburst, the months of silence, the unbearable loneliness of facing cancer in a family that refused to say its name. Elaine listened without interruption, until Sarah's voice gave out. Where are you right now? Elaine asked after a moment. In my car, outside my aunt's house. Are you okay to drive? Sarah took stock. Her hands had stopped shaking, and the tears had subsided to quiet hiccups. I think so. Good. Our support group meets tonight at 7 at the Lakeside Community Center. I know it's short notice, but I think you could use it. No pressure to talk. You can just listen if you want. Sarah glanced at her watch. It was just past 4. I don't know. I'm pretty tired. That's the cancer and chemo talking, Elaine said matter-of-factly. Being tired is your new normal. But isolation will kill your spirit faster than cancer will kill your body. Trust me on this. The bluntness was startling but strangely comforting after months of euphemisms and avoidance. I'll think about it, Sarah said, not quite ready to commit. That's all I ask. Address is 1453 Pine Street. We meet in room 104. I'll keep an eye out for you. After hanging up, Sarah drove home in a daze. 3 text messages from her mother, 1 from her father, and 2 from Claire waited on her phone. She ignored them all. At home, she lay on her couch, emotionally and physically drained. The confrontation at the baby shower played on repeat in her mind. The shocked faces, Jenny's tears, her mother's embarrassment. Had she gone too far? Maybe her family was right. Maybe talking about cancer only made everything worse. But then she remembered the weight that had lifted when she finally spoke the truth aloud. How, for just a moment, she had felt like herself again, not a ghost, not a secret, but Sarah, fighting for her life and demanding to be seen. At 6:30, Sarah found herself getting up from the couch, changing into fresh clothes, and wrapping a different scarf around her head. Before she could talk herself out of it, she grabbed her keys and headed for the door. The Lakeside Community Center was a modern building with large windows and a small courtyard out front. Sarah sat in her car, watching people enter. They looked normal, not the group of tragic, depressed cancer patients she had half expected. Some were clearly in treatment, bald under hats or scarves, but others appeared healthy. They walked in chatting, some even laughing. At 5 minutes to 7, Sarah finally summoned the courage to get out of her car. She stood outside, room 104, her heart pounding. Through the door's small window, she could see about 15 people arranging chairs in a circle. Elaine was there, her silver hair and red glasses unmistakable, directing the setup with animated gestures. Sarah's phone buzzed. Her mother. We need to talk about what happened today. She silenced her phone and put it away. Later, she would deal with her family later. Taking a deep breath, Sarah pushed open the door. Conversation paused as several people looked up. Elaine spotted her immediately, a smile spreading across her face. Sarah, you made it. She approached, hands outstretched. Everyone, this is Sarah. She's new, so be nice. A chorus of hellos greeted her. A young man about her age patted the empty chair next to him. Saved you a seat. I'm Miguel. As Sarah moved toward the chair, she felt like she was crossing more than just a room. She was stepping from one world into another, from silence into truth. Let's begin, Elaine said, settling into her chair as the circle completed. For those joining us for the first time, we start by sharing our names and whatever else we feel comfortable discussing. No pressure, no judgment. This is a space for truth, whatever your truth happens to be today. Sarah sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap, studying the group. Bessie this Miguel, there was a middle-aged woman with a headscarf similar to Sarah, an elderly man with oxygen tubes in his nose, a couple holding hands so tightly their knuckles were white, and several others of varying ages and apparent health statuses. One by one, they introduced themselves. I'm Denise, breast cancer, 3 years in remission but scared about my upcoming scan. Robert, pancreatic, stage 4, outlived my prognosis by 8 months so far. Miguel, testicular, finished chemo last month, waiting to see if it worked. When it came to Sarah's turn, her throat tightened. I'm Sarah, ovarian, stage 3, 6 months since diagnosis. Welcome, Sarah. The group responded in unison. Would you like to share anything else? Elaine asked gently. Sarah shook her head. That's perfectly fine, Elaine assured her. Listening is participating too. The meeting progressed, and Sarah was struck by the raw honesty in the room. People spoke about their fears of recurrence, the toll of treatment, financial worries, relationship struggles. They cried without apology. They laughed about the absurdities of hospital gowns and the ridiculous things well-meaning friends said. No one flinched when the word cancer was mentioned. No one changed the subject when mortality was discussed. No one offered empty platitudes or forced optimism. My sister told me to just stay positive again, said Denise, rolling her eyes. As if my attitude is going to magically dissolve my tumor. Murmurs of understanding rippled through the group. My husband still can't say the word cancer, added a woman named Teresa. He calls it your health issue. 7 years, and he still can't say it. My family is the same way, Sarah heard herself say, surprising herself. They act like if we don't talk about it, it isn't real. All eyes turned to her, but not with the shock or discomfort she was accustomed to seeing. Instead, there were nods of recognition. The conspiracy of silence, Elaine said. It's actually quite common. People think they're protecting you or themselves by not naming the disease. I had a meltdown at my cousin's baby shower today, Sarah continued, the words flowing more easily now. I just couldn't take the pretending anymore. Good for you, said Robert, the elderly man. Took me 6 months to tell my bowling league. Regretted every day I didn't. How did your family react? Miguel asked. Sarah shrugged. Shocked, embarrassed. My mother thinks the chemo is making me emotional. Teresa laughed. As if we need chemo for that. Cancer is emotional all by itself. For the next hour, the conversation ebbed and flowed naturally. Sarah spoke only a few more times, but each time felt like a small liberation. Here, she wasn't a secret to be kept or a problem to be managed. She was just Sarah, one of many, walking a difficult path, seeking connection in the darkness. When the meeting ended, people exchanged hugs and phone numbers. Miguel gave Sarah his contact information. Text me anytime, especially at 3 a.m., when you're convinced every twinge means the cancer's spread. I'm usually awake worrying about the same thing. His smile was warm, genuine, the smile of someone who truly understood. Elaine approached as people began to leave. So, what did you think? It was, ... double quotes. Sarah searched for the right word. Honest. That's what we aim for. Will you come back next week? Sarah nodded, surprising herself with the certainty she felt. Yes, definitely. As she drove home, Sarah realized the knot of tension she'd carried in her chest for months had loosened slightly. For the first time since her diagnosis, she had spoken about her cancer without filtering her words or monitoring others' reactions. She had been truly seen, not as a tragic figure or a problem to solve, but as a person navigating an impossible situation as best she could. Her phone showed 7 missed calls from her family. She would deal with them tomorrow. Tonight, she would hold on to this small piece of freedom she had found, the freedom to speak her truth and be heard. I just don't understand why you need to talk to strangers about your health issues, Sarah's mother said, arranging a bouquet of flowers she'd brought as if pretty daisies could smooth over the rift that had opened between them. We're your family, we're here for you. Sarah sipped her tea, choosing her words carefully. It had been 3 days since the baby shower incident, and this was her mother's second visit attempting to restore the status quo. You're here for me physically, Mom. You drive me to appointments. You clean my apartment. You bring food. But emotionally, you shut down every time I try to talk about what I'm actually experiencing. Her mother's hands stilled on the flowers. That's not true. I listen. You listen to the safe parts. The parts that don't scare you. But cancer isn't safe. and I need to talk about all of it. I don't see how dwelling on the negative helps anyone. It's not dwelling, it's acknowledging reality. Sarah set down her mug. The support group helps me do that. Her mother's lips thinned. Those groups just make people more depressed. All that focus on illness. Actually, I feel better since I started going, Sarah countered. Less alone. You're not alone. You have us, Mom. Sarah reached for her mother's hand. I know this is hard for you too, but pretending I'm not sick doesn't help me. It makes me feel invisible. Her mother withdrew her hand. I should go? Your father's waiting in the car. She gathered her purse, pausing at the door. Will you be at Sunday dinner? Sarah nodded. I'll be there. After her mother left, Sarah opened her laptop and navigated to the private forum Elaine had recommended. She had joined after her second support group meeting and found solace in the 24/7 community of cancer patients and survivors. Message from Miguel waited in her inbox. How did it go with your mom? Battle or truce? Sarah smiled and typed back, neither. More like a stalemate. She thinks support groups are depressing death cults. I think they're saving my sanity. His response came quickly. Same. My parents want me to see their spiritual healer instead. I told them I'll do both science for my body, spirituality for my soul, and support groups for my sanity. Sarah laughed out loud, a sound that was becoming less foreign to her apartment. Over the next few weeks, Sarah navigated between her two worlds with increasing difficulty. In the support group world, she spoke freely about her fears, her treatments, her body's betrayals. She exchanged late-night texts with Miguel when pain kept her awake. She joined Elaine for coffee before chemotherapy appointments, grateful for someone who didn't flinch when she described her symptoms. In her family world, the wall of silence had developed small cracks but remained largely intact. Her outburst at the baby shower was referenced obliquely as her getting upset or having a difficult moment. Cancer was still your situation or your health issue. Sunday dinners remained exercises in avoidance. Her mother fussed over her food, urging her to eat more while simultaneously avoiding any discussion of why eating was difficult. Her father asked about her blog, the innocuous one about books she'd maintained before her diagnosis, not knowing she'd started a private cancer blog where she documented her true experiences. Only her niece, 8-year-old Lily, approached her with unfiltered curiosity. Aunt Sarah, why do you wear scarves on your head now? Before Sarah's sister could shush the child, Sarah answered honestly, because I'm taking strong medicine that made my hair fall out. It's helping me fight the cancer in my body. Does it hurt? Lily asked, her eyes wide. Sometimes, Sarah admitted, but the doctors are very good at helping with the pain. Lily nodded solemnly. My friend Emma's mom had cancer. She got better and her hair grew back curly. Lily, that's enough questions. Claire intervened, shooting Sarah an apologetic look. Go wash your hands for dinner. She's just curious, Sarah said after Lily had gone. Kids can handle more truth than we give them credit for. Claire's expression tightened. She had nightmares for weeks after Emma's mom was diagnosed. I'd rather not repeat that experience. Sarah bit back her response. The divide between her worlds seemed to widen with each passing day. That night, as she scrolled through responses to her latest blog post, Sarah wondered how long she could continue straddling these parallel realities. Something would have to give eventually. She just hadn't expected it would be her health. You should make your blog public, Miguel suggested during their weekly pre-support group coffee. Your writing is amazing. It could help a lot of people. Sarah stirred her decaf Latera coffee now made her stomach churn. It's too personal. Plus, my family would have a collective heart attack if they read how I really feel. That's exactly why it's important. Elaine chimed in, joining them with her usual chamomile tea. The world needs more honest voices about cancer. Not just the triumphant survivor narratives or the tragic victim stories, the messy, complicated reality of living with uncertainty. Sarah had started her private cancer blog 2 months earlier, initially as a digital journal where she could express thoughts to raw even for the support group, but she'd shared the link with Elaine and Miguel, and gradually with a few others. From the group, I don't even use my real name on it, Sarah pointed out. You don't have to, Miguel said. Keep the anonymity if you want, but let people find it. Let the algorithm do its thing. Sarah considered it as they walked to the community center. Her latest post had been about the strange dual consciousness of cancer patients, how you simultaneously plan for a future you might not have while preparing for a death that might be imminent, how you research retirement investments while also updating your will, how you plant perennials in your garden and wonder if you'll see them bloom. It was the kind of truth her family couldn't bear to hear, but that resonated deeply with her support group friends. That night, after the meeting, Sarah sat at her computer and changed the blog's privacy settings from private to public. She created a new post explaining the purpose of the blog, a space for unfiltered truth about cancer, the good days and the unbearable ones, the small victories and the crushing setbacks. I don't claim to speak for all cancer patients, she wrote. This is just my journey, my truth. If it helps even one person feel less alone in their own journey, that's enough. She hesitated over the publish button, then clicked it before she could change her mind. The next morning, she was surprised to find 3 comments. Thank you for putting into words what I couldn't explain to my husband. My mom has ovarian cancer. 2. Reading your blog helps me understand what she might be going through but won't tell me. Just diagnosed last week. Terrified. Your honesty makes me feel less crazy for being so scared. Sarah read and reread the comments, a strange warmth spreading through her chest. For the first time since her diagnosis, she felt like her experience might have purpose, that the pain and fear might somehow matter beyond her own life. Over the next few weeks, the blog grew steadily. Sarah posted about the indignity of hospital gowns that never quite closed in the back, about the strange dreams induced by her medications, about lying awake at night cataloging regrets and unfinished business. She wrote about her family's silence and her support group's openness. She described the bizarre experience of watching TV shows where characters made plans for next summer, next Christmas, next year, the casual certainty of a future that cancer patients couldn't take for granted. Comments accumulated. Other cancer patients shared their own experiences. Family members of cancer patients thanked her for helping them understand their loved ones better. Medical students wrote that her posts gave them insight they couldn't get from textbooks. Sarah found herself checking the blog multiple times a day, responding to comments, connecting with people around the world who somehow understood her better than the family she'd known all her life. My blog got 1,000 views yesterday, she told Miguel over text one evening. I told you, people are hungry for the truth. Cancer is still so taboo. Sarah smiled at her phone, then paused as another text came in, this one from her sister. Can you send me the link to your book blog again? Mom mentioned you're writing more these days. I'd love to see what you're reading. Sarah stared at the message, her chest tightening. Her family still didn't know about the cancer blog. They thought she was still writing innocuous book reviews, not revealing the intimate details of her illness and her feelings about their response to it. How would they react if they discovered it? Would they see it as a betrayal, airing family business to strangers, or would they finally understand what she'd been trying to tell them all along? She texted back the link to her old, abandoned book blog, then set her phone aside, feeling the weight of her double life growing heavier. Dr. Patel's face told Sarah everything before he said a word. She'd become fluent in the subtle language of oncologists, the slight tightening around the eyes, the carefully neutral expression, the way he held her scan results just a beat too long before speaking. The cancer has spread, he said gently. There are new metastases in your liver and lungs. Sarah nodded, a strange calm washing over her. She'd known, somehow, the increasing pain in her side, the deepening fatigue. Her body had been whispering the truth for weeks. What's next? She asked, her voice steady. Dr. Patel outlined the new treatment plan, a more aggressive chemotherapy regimen, possible radiation, another surgery if she responded well enough. Words like challenging and difficult peppered his explanation, carefully avoiding terminal or palliative, though the specter of those words hovered in the room. Any questions? He asked when he finished. What are my chances now? He met her eyes directly. The 5-year survival rate drops to about 15% with this level of metastasis. But statistics are just numbers, Sarah. They don't define individual outcomes. Her mother, who had driven her to the appointment but remained silent throughout, finally spoke. There must be other options. Clinical trials, alternative treatments. We can certainly explore clinical trials, Dr. Patel agreed. I'll have my nurse bring information about current studies. In the car afterward, Sarah stared out the window, processing. Her mother gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white. Dr. Patel seems pessimistic, her mother said finally. Maybe we should get another opinion. He's being realistic, Mom. The cancer is spreading despite treatment. That's a fact, not pessimism. Well, I don't think we should accept his prognosis as the final word. Your aunt's friend's daughter had pancreatic cancer much worse than yours, and she recovered completely after trying this special diet. Mom, stop, Sarah interrupted. Please, I need to process this my own way. They drove in silence for several minutes before her mother spoke again, her voice small. What do you need from me, Sarah? The question so simple, so direct caught Sarah off guard. For once, her mother wasn't telling her what she needed or how she should feel. I need to be able to talk about what's happening, Sarah said carefully. All of it, the good and the bad. I need to be scared sometimes without you trying to fix it or dismiss it. I need you to listen without changing the subject when things get uncomfortable. Her mother nodded, eyes fixed on the road. I can try. When Sarah got home, she found multiple text messages from her support group friends. Word had spread quickly. Just heard about your scans. I'm here, if you need anything. Literally anything. Miguel coming over with soup and trashy magazines. No arguments. Elaine, our room at the hospital has your name on it whenever you're ready. We've been through this setback before. We'll get through it again. Teresa and her husband Paul within an hour. Her apartment filled with support group friends. They brought food she could actually stomach, blankets for the chills she'd soon experience, ginger candy for nausea. No one offered empty reassurances or forced optimism. No one avoided the reality of what she was facing. Miguel sat beside her on the couch, his shoulder touching hers. Have you updated the blog yet? Sarah shook her head, not ready to put it into words. When you are, it'll help others going through the same thing. Always thinking of my readers, she teased weakly. I'm thinking of you, he corrected. Writing helps you process it. You've said so yourself. Later that night, after everyone had gone, Sarah opened her laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before she began typing. Today I learned that cancer is winning. Not the final battle, perhaps, but this particular skirmish. It has advanced to new territories despite our best defensive strategies. My medical team is regrouping, planning a more aggressive counterattack. I am both battlefield and soldier, strategist and casualty. The words flowed, bringing clarity, if not comfort. By the time she finished the post, dawn was breaking. She published it without rereading, then fell into an exhausted sleep. She woke to hundreds of comments, fellow patients sharing their own setbacks and comebacks. Family members of cancer patients expressing new understanding of their loved ones' journeys, even medical professionals praising her articulation of the patient experience. Her phone rang. It was her mother. I'm coming over, she said without preamble, and I'm staying for a few days. You shouldn't be alone right now. Sarah started to protest that she wasn't alone. She had her support group, her blog community. But instead, she simply said, "Thank you, Ma. I think I want to put my name on the blog," Sarah told Elaine during a brief respite between treatments. The new chemotherapy regimen had left her weaker than before, but her mind remained sharp, filled with thoughts she needed to express. Elaine looked up from the scarf she was knitting. Another addition to Sarah's growing collection. That's a big step. Are you sure? Sarah nodded slowly. I've been writing anonymously for months, and it's helped me, but I keep thinking about how much I needed to hear these stories when I was first diagnosed, how much I still need to hear them. Maybe attaching my real name would help other people find it. Make it more, I don't know, legitimate. You don't need your name to be legitimate, Elaine pointed out. Your words already are, I know, but it feels like hiding, like I'm still participating in the silence in my own way. Miguel, who had been quietly organizing Sarah's medications on her kitchen counter, joined the conversation. What about your family? They still don't know about the blog, right? Sarah sighed. That's the complicated part. My mom's been trying, really trying since the news about the metastasis. She still doesn't use the word cancer much, but she's stopped changing the subject when I talk about symptoms or fears. It's progress. Finding out about the blog might set that progress back, Elaine warned. Or it might help her understand me better, Sarah countered. See the parts of my experience I still can't say to her face. That night, after Elaine and Miguel had gone, Sarah stared at her blog's admin settings. The cursor hovered over her pseudonym, Cancer Bruftella, one click, and she could replace it with Sarah Lawson. One click to bridge her two worlds. She thought about her growing readership. Over 10,000 people now read her posts regularly. She received dozens of messages daily from patients and families, thanking her for articulating experiences they couldn't find words for. Last week, a hospice nurse had written that she assigned Sarah's blog as reading for new staff to help them understand the emotional landscape of terminal illness. A medical school professor had asked permission to use excerpts in a course on patient-centered care. What had begun as a private outlet had become something larger, voice for experiences often left unspoken, a window into the complicated reality of living with mortality as a constant companion. Sarah took a deep breath and changed her pseudonym to her real name. Then she wrote a new post explaining her decision. From today, I'm writing as myself, Sarah Lawson, 34, writer, daughter, friend, cancer patient. I'm stepping out from behind anonymity because silence and shame around illness only increases suffering. I've learned that the hard way, both from my family's well-intentioned avoidance and my own initial reluctance to speak my truth. But every time I've chosen honesty over comfort, healing has followed, if not from my body, then from my spirit. She hesitated before adding the final paragraph. To my family, who may be learning about this blog for the first time, I'm sorry you're finding out this way. These words were never meant to hurt you, but to help me survive. I hope they might help us understand each other better in whatever time we have left. Sarah posted it before she could change her mind, then closed her laptop and took her evening medications. Whatever fallout came, she would face it tomorrow. The response was swift and overwhelming. Messages flooded her inbox from longtime readers applauding her courage, from new readers who found her through shared posts, from journalists requesting interviews, from publishers inquiring about book rights. But the message she was waiting for from her family didn't come. By mid-afternoon, anxiety gnawed at her. Had they seen it? Were they hurt? Angry? She finally texted her sister, "Have you been online today?" Claire's response was immediate. "No." "Why? Is something wrong?" Sarah took a deep breath and typed, "I've been writing a blog about my cancer experience. It's gotten quite popular. Today I put my real name on it. You might hear about it." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Finally, "Send me the link." Sarah did, then waited, her stomach in knots. An hour passed. Then 2. Her phone remained silent. Just as she was about to call Claire, her doorbell rang. Sarah opened it to find her sister standing there, eyes red from crying. "Why didn't you tell us?" Claire asked, her voice breaking. "All this time, you've been sharing these feelings with strangers instead of us." "I tried to share them with you," Sarah said quietly. "For months, I tried. None of you wanted to hear it." Claire stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "I read every post. All of them. I had no idea you felt so alone. Now you know." "Yes," Claire whispered, reaching for Sarah's hand. "Now, I know." "Local Channel 7 wants to interview you about the blog," Miguel announced, waving his phone as he entered Sarah's apartment with a bag of groceries. "They called the contact number on your website." Sarah looked up from her laptop, where she'd been responding to this seemingly endless stream of messages since revealing her identity. "A TV interview? I don't know. It would reach even more people," Miguel pointed out, unpacking fresh vegetables for the soup he'd promised to make her. "Imagine how many newly diagnosed patients might find your blog that way." "I can barely leave the apartment these days," Sarah reminded him. The latest round of chemo had hit her harder than previous treatments. "I don't exactly look like a poster child for cancer awareness." "That's exactly why you should do it," Elaine said, letting herself in with the key Sarah had given her for emergencies. "People need to see the reality, not some sanitized, inspirational version of illness." Sarah's phone rang her mother. Since Claire's visit 3 days ago, her family had been processing the revelation of her blog in their own ways. Claire had read every post and called in tears, apologizing for not understanding sooner. Her father had sent a brief text, "We love you, no matter what." Her mother had been silent until now. "Mom, I read your blog," her mother said without preamble. "All of it." Sarah's heart raced. "And I didn't know." Her mother's voice broke. "I didn't know how much pain you were in, not just physically, but because of how how I responded." "Mom, no, let me finish. I thought I was protecting you on myself. I suppose by not talking about it, I thought focusing on normal things would help you feel normal. I never realized the silence was making you feel so alone. Sarah wiped away tears. I understand why you did it. That's just it, to do understand. You wrote about it with such compassion in your blog. You understood me better than I understood you. Her mother paused. Claire says a TV station wants to interview you. Sarah was surprised Claire had mentioned it. They reached out, but I haven't decided. You should do it, her mother said firmly. Your words are helping people. I saw the comments, the messages. You're making a difference, Sarah. After hanging up, Sarah looked at Miguel and Elaine, who had been pretending not to eavesdrop. My mother thinks I should do the interview. Smart woman, Elaine nodded approvingly. The next morning, Sarah called the station and agreed to the interview, with conditions. It would be filmed in her apartment. There would be no makeup to hide the effects of her treatment, and the focus would be on patient advocacy and the importance of open communication about illness, not on painting her as an inspirational figure. The producer agreed enthusiastically. That's exactly the authentic approach we want. 3 days later, Sarah sat in her living room across from Lisa Chen, the channel's health reporter. The camera crew had arranged the furniture to frame Sarah near her window, where soft light filtered through the curtains. I'm nervous, Sarah admitted as the crew made final adjustments. I've never done anything like this. Just speak from the heart, like you do in your blog, Lisa advised. Forget about the camera. This is just a conversation between us. The interview began with basic questions about Sarah's diagnosis and treatment. Then, Lisa shifted to the blog. Your writing about cancer has resonated with thousands of readers. Why do you think your perspective has struck such a chord? Sarah considered the question. I think we're starved for honesty about illness and mortality. Our culture wants cancer stories to fit certain narratives: the triumphant survivor, the brave warrior, the tragic victim. The messy reality gets sanitized. I just write the truth about my experience, the fear, the grief, the unexpected moments of joy, the absurdity of it all. You've written extensively about your family's initial reluctance to discuss your cancer openly. Has that changed since your blog went public? Sarah smiled slightly. Yes, actually. My sister has read every post. My mother called me yesterday to discuss a specific blog entry from months ago. We're having conversations now that weren't possible before. It's not always comfortable, but it's real. What would you say to families struggling to talk about cancer or other serious illnesses? Silence doesn't protect anyone, Sarah said firmly. Not the patient, not the family. It creates isolation when connection is needed most. You don't have to have the right words. There are no right words. Just be willing to sit with the discomfort, to listen, to acknowledge the reality, however painful it might be. The interview continued for nearly an hour. Sarah felt exhausted but exhilarated when it was finally over. We'll edit this down to about 8 minutes for the evening news tomorrow, Lisa explained. But we'd like to put the full interview on our website. Your story is too important to cut too much. After the crew packed up and left, Sarah collapsed on her couch. Miguel brought her tea. You were amazing, he said, sitting beside her. Absolutely amazing. I just told the truth, Sarah said. Sometimes, Elaine said from the kitchen doorway, that's the most radical thing you can do. The interview aired the following evening. Sarah watched it with Miguel and Elaine, cringing slightly at seeing herself on screen, the pronounced hollows beneath her cheekbones, the scarves covering her bare scalp, the visible port beneath her collarbone when she leaned forward. You look beautiful, Miguel said, correctly interpreting her discomfort. Strong and real. The edited piece was powerful in its simplicity. The station had resisted the urge to overlay dramatic music or cut to tearful reactions. Instead, they let Sarah's words stand on their own, interspersed with statistics about cancer communication and quotes from healthcare professionals about the importance of emotional support during treatment. Her phone began buzzing with notifications before the segment even ended. Friends she hadn't heard from since her diagnosis, former colleagues, distant relatives, all reaching out now that her illness had been made public in the most visible way possible. Are you ready for this? Elaine asked, eyeing the constantly lighting phone. I don't think anyone can be ready for this, Sarah admitted. But it feels right. No more hiding. The doorbell rang. Miguel answered it to find Sarah's parents and sister standing there. We watched it together, Claire explained as they entered. We wanted to come right over. Sarah's mother embraced her gently. You were wonderful, sweetheart. So articulate, so honest. Her father stood awkwardly by the door. eyes suspiciously bright. Proud of you, kid, he said gruffly. Elaine and Miguel made excuses to leave, sensing the family needed privacy. Once they were gone, an uncomfortable silence fell. Sarah's mother broke it first. We need to talk about what happens next. With your treatment, with the blog, with everything. What do you mean, what happens next? Sarah asked cautiously. You said on television that the new treatment isn't working as well as hoped, her father said. We've been looking into alternatives. Your aunt found a treatment center in Arizona that has an experimental protocol. Dad, Sarah interrupted gently. Dr. Patel is already connecting me with clinical trials. I trust him, but there are other options, her mother insisted. Now that you're public with your illness, we can fundraise. Your cousin Jason works in marketing. He thinks we could raise enough for any treatment you need. Sarah felt a familiar tension building. Mom, that's not what I want. What do you mean? Her mother's voice rose slightly. Don't you want to try everything possible? I want quality of life, not just quantity, Sarah explained carefully. I'm working closely with my medical team to make informed decisions. I'm not giving up, but I'm also not chasing false hope. Her father stepped forward. But that center, in Arizona, has a $60,000 fee and no peer-reviewed research supporting their methods, Sarah finished for him. I've done my research, Dad. So you're just giving up? Her mother asked, tears filling her eyes. That's not fair, Claire interjected, surprising Sarah with her defense. Choosing how to face her illness is Sarah's decision, not ours. You don't understand, their mother said, voice rising. None of you understand what it's like to watch your child suffer and not be able to help. Mom, Sarah said softly, why is this so hard for you? Beyond the obvious, I mean, her mother sank onto the couch, suddenly looking much older. Your grandmother, my mother, died of breast cancer when I was 19. She never told anyone she was sick until she couldn't hide it anymore. By then, it was everywhere. I watched her die in silence, refusing to acknowledge what was happening even at the end. Tears streamed down her face. I swore I'd never let that happen in my family again, but when you got sick, I couldn't bear it. I thought if we didn't talk about it, somehow it wouldn't be real. Oh, Mom. Sarah moved to sit beside her mother, taking her hand. I didn't know about Grandma. You never talked about how she died because it was too painful, her mother whispered. The silence, the secret sit was awful. And then I did the same thing to you. You were trying to protect yourself from reliving that trauma, Sarah said gently. I understand that now. But I failed you, her mother insisted. I read your blog. I saw how alone you felt. I'm not alone anymore, Sarah said, looking around at her family. None of us are. That's the point of breaking the silence. Her father cleared his throat. When your mother got the call about your diagnosis, I found her on the bathroom floor, unable to breathe. I thought she was having a heart attack. He looked down at his hands. I suggested we stay positive around you. I thought it would help everyone cope. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry too, Claire added. I was so focused on protecting my kids from the reality of your illness that I didn't think about what you needed. Sarah felt tears welling. I'm sorry I didn't try harder to tell you directly before sharing it with the world. They sat together in silence for a moment, not the stifled, uncomfortable silence of before, but a shared, healing quiet. So what now? Her father finally asked. How do we support you the way you need? Just like this, Sarah said simply. By being honest. By not looking away. By acknowledging the reality, however painful. That's all I ever wanted. Sarah stared at her inbox in disbelief. Over 500 new messages since the interview aired yesterday. Her blog traffic had increased tenfold. The hosting company had sent an automated warning about bandwidth usage. We might need to upgrade your website, Miguel said, peering over her shoulder at the laptop screen. You've gone viral. The messages came from everywhere: newly diagnosed, patients seeking guidance, family members trying to understand their loved ones' experiences, healthcare providers thanking her for articulating what their patients couldn't express. Reading them was overwhelming but deeply moving. Listen to this one, Sarah said, opening an email. My mother was diagnosed last month and refuses to discuss it. I showed her your interview, and for the first time, she cried and told me she's afraid. Thank you for giving us a way to start talking. Miguel squeezed her shoulder. You're making a difference. As Sarah's physical strength continued to wane from the aggressive treatments, her voice grew stronger. She wrote blog posts from her hospital bed during treatments, She recorded voice memos when she was too tired to type. Miguel or Elaine would transcribe them, preserving her exact words. A month after the interview, a local cancer center invited Sarah to speak at a workshop for healthcare providers on patient communication. She agreed, though she now needed a wheelchair for anything beyond short distances. "I'm not sure I can do this," she admitted to Elaine as they prepared for the event. "What if I'm too tired? What if I can't answer their questions?" "Then you'll be demonstrating exactly what patients go through," Elaine replied pragmatically. "The uncertainty, the limitations, that's valuable for them to see." The workshop was held in a small auditorium at the cancer center. Sarah was surprised to see familiar faces in the audience, not just medical staff, but members of her support group, readers of her blog, and even her mother and sister. Sitting quietly in the back row, speaking came more easily than she expected. She shared her experience of diagnosis, the wall of silence she'd encountered, and how isolation had compounded her suffering. She described how honest communication, first with her support group, then through her blog, and finally with her family, had become a lifeline. "Cancer patients aren't just fighting disease," she told the rapt audience. "We're fighting to maintain our identities, our connections, our sense of meaning. When the people around us can't bear to acknowledge what's happening, we become suffering unseen, our fears unheard. That invisibility can be as painful as the cancer itself." Questions followed, thoughtful, sometimes challenging. A young oncologist asked how to balance honesty with hope. A nurse described feeling overwhelmed by patients' emotional needs. A social worker questioned whether all patients wanted the level of openness Sarah advocated. "Every patient is different," Sarah acknowledged. "Some may prefer privacy or optimism. The key is to create space for whatever they need to express, rather than imposing silence out of our own discomfort." After the formal session ended, people lined up to speak with her personally. Sarah noticed a woman hanging back, clutching a notebook, clearly waiting until others had gone. "Hi," Sarah said when the woman finally approached. "I'm Sarah." "I know," the woman said softly. "I'm Jennifer. I was diagnosed last week, ovarian, like you, stage 2. I saw your interview and I don't know how to do this, how to be sick, how to tell people, how to not disappear." Sarah reached for her hand. "You don't have to figure it all out at once. Just start with the truth, whatever that is for you today." "Will you help me?" Jennifer asked. "Yes," Sarah said simply. "That's why I'm here." The notification chimed while Sarah was resting between treatments. A direct message on her blog from Cancer Cousin 92. Curious, she opened it. "Aunt Sarah, it's Madison. Please don't tell Mom I messaged you. I've been reading your blog in secret. I need to talk to someone who understands. Can we meet?" Sarah blinked in surprise. Madison was Claire's 16-year-old daughter, the older of Sarah's 2 nieces. They had always been close before the diagnosis, but like the rest of the family, Madison had kept her distance once Sarah got sick. Sarah typed back immediately, "Of course we can meet. Your mom brings lunch tomorrow, why not come with her? I promise not to mention the blog unless you want to discuss it." The next day, Claire arrived with Madison in tow. "Look who wanted to see her aunt," Claire announced with forced brightness. "I'll get lunch started." As soon as Claire disappeared into the kitchen, Madison sat beside Sarah on the couch. "I've read every post," she whispered. "Mom doesn't know. She thinks I'm doing a school project on medical blogs." Sarah smiled. "Clever. Why didn't you tell us how you really felt?" Madison asked, her young face serious. "In the beginning, I tried," Sarah admitted. "But everyone seemed so uncomfortable that I stopped trying." Madison nodded solemnly. "That's how I felt too. Mom kept saying you were doing great and staying positive. But then I'd overhear her crying on the phone with Dad." She twisted a strand of hair around her finger. Nervous habit she'd had since childhood. "I was afraid to ask questions because I didn't want to upset anyone." "What questions did you have?" Sarah asked gently. Madison's eyes filled with tears. "Are you going to die? Does it hurt? Are you scared? Could I get cancer too someday? Will I still be able to talk to you if you die?" The words tumbled out in a rush. Nobody would tell me anything real. Sarah took her niece's hand. "Those are all valid questions. The honest answers are, I might die from this cancer. Yes, sometimes it hurts a lot. Yes, I'm often scared. You could get cancer someday, but you could also live a long, healthy life. And I believe that love doesn't end when someone dies. So yes, in some way, we'll always be connected. Madison wiped her eyes. Thank you for not treating me like a baby. You're not a baby. You're old enough to handle the truth. Claire returned, with sandwiches, stopping short when she saw Madison's tears. What's wrong? We're just having an honest conversation, Sarah explained. Madison had some questions about my illness. Claire's face tightened. I don't think, Mom, Madison interrupted, straightening her shoulders. I need to be able to talk about Aunt Sarah's cancer. Pretending everything's fine when it's not is making it worse. Claire looked between them, conflict evident in her expression. I was trying to protect you. I know, Madison said, but not talking about it doesn't make it less scary. It just makes me feel alone with the scary feelings. Something shifted in Claire's face, recognition, perhaps, of her daughter's emotional maturity, or memory of her own unexpressed fears when their grandmother was dying. You're right, she said finally. Both of you are right. She set down the plate of sandwiches and sat on Madison's other side. What else do you want to know, sweetheart? As Madison began asking questions tentatively at first. Then, with growing confidence, Sarah observed the transformation happening before her eyes. The wall of silence that had isolated her from her family was crumbling, brick by brick, starting with this brave 6. Later, after Claire and Madison had gone, Sarah received another message from her niece. Thank you for today. Mom and I talked the whole way home. She's going to let me come to one of your support group meetings. Is that okay? Sarah smiled as she typed her reply. More than okay. You're welcome anytime. She added a new post to her blog that evening. Today, my teenage niece taught me that even the youngest among us hunger for truth. Breaking the silence around illness isn't just for patients, it's for everyone who loves them, including the children we think we're protecting. Sometimes, those we try to shield end up being our strongest allies in the fight for honest connection. Your mother is here, Miguel whispered, poking his head into Sarah's bedroom. She wants to know if you're up for a visitor. Sarah nodded weakly from her bed. The latest round of treatment had left her more depleted than ever, barely able to sit up without assistance. Despite this, she'd continued writing, dictating blog posts to Miguel or Elaine when she couldn't type. Her mother entered hesitantly, carrying a small potted orchid, the house plant that's hardest to kill, she joked awkwardly, placing it on the nightstand. How are you feeling today? Honestly, pretty terrible, Sarah admitted, but the anti-nausea meds are helping a little. Her mother nodded, perching on the edge of the bed. Your blog post yesterday, about preparing for the possibility that treatments might not work. It was beautifully written. Thank you, Sarah said, surprised. Her mother had been reading the blog regularly now, but rarely commented on specific posts. I was wondering, her mother continued, fidgeting with her wedding ring, if I might come to one of your support group meetings, just to listen. Sarah stared at her in disbelief. You want to come to my support group, if that's allowed? Elaine mentioned there's a session for family members sometimes. Yes, once a month. Sarah studied her mother's face. But I didn't think you'd be interested. Her mother looked down at her hands. I've been trying to understand your experience better. Your blog helps, but I thought hearing from other patients and families might help too. Sarah reached for her mother's hand. The next family session is Thursday evening. I'd love for you to come. Thursday arrived, and despite feeling slightly stronger, Sarah still needed a wheelchair to attend the meeting. Miguel pushed her into the community center, with her mother following nervously behind. The room was arranged differently for family sessions, patients and family members intermixed rather than separated. Sarah introduced her mother to Elaine, who was facilitating, and to several regulars from the group. We're honored you could join us, Mrs. Lawson, Elaine said warmly. Sarah has shared so much about your family's journey. Sarah's mother looked momentarily alarmed. All good things, I hope. All honest things, Elaine corrected gently. That's what we value here. The meeting began with introductions. When it was her mother's turn, she spoke hesitantly. I'm Ellen, Sarah's mother. I'm here because, she paused, glancing at Sarah, because I want to learn how to support my daughter better. As the session progressed, family members shared their struggles, the helplessness they felt watching their loved ones suffer, the fear of saying the wrong thing, the anticipatory grief that struck at unexpected moments. Sometimes I catch myself planning his funeral in my head, confessed the husband of a man with pancreatic cancer. Then I feel guilty for giving up hope. I've done that too, another family member admitted. I think it's the mind's way of preparing for the worst while still hoping for the best. Sarah watched her mother listening intently, occasionally nodding in recognition. When a young woman described her father's refusal to discuss her mother's declining condition, Sarah saw tears well in her mother's eyes. "It's not that we don't care," her mother said suddenly, surprising everyone by speaking up. "It's that we care so much it physically hurts. Sometimes silence feels like the only way to keep functioning." She wiped her eyes. "But I'm learning that silence hurts the patient more than it protects the family." After the meeting, as they waited for Miguel to bring the car around, Sarah's mother sat beside her wheelchair in the lobby, unusually quiet. "Thank you for coming," Sarah said, breaking the silence. Her mother nodded, then took a deep breath. "I've been so afraid of losing you that I've been missing the chance to be with you now." "I'm sorry, Sarah." "Mom, no, let me finish. When your grandmother was dying, no one would acknowledge it. We kept having normal conversations while she wasted away in front of us. Her last words to me were about a neighbor's garden party. Not, 'I love you,' not 'goodbye,' just small talk." Tears streamed down her face. "I always thought that was what she wanted, normalcy, until the end. But after hearing these people tonight, I wonder if she was just doing what she thought we needed." Sarah took her mother's hand. "We can do better." "Yes," her mother whispered, squeezing back. "We can." The email arrived at 3 a.m. when Sarah was awake from pain and scrolling through messages from blog readers to distract herself. The subject line caught her attention immediately: "Clinical Trial Opportunity, Dr. Miranda Chun." Sarah opened it with trembling fingers. "Dear Ms. Lawson, I'm a researcher at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York. A colleague forwarded your blog to me after reading about your specific cancer markers and treatment history. We're beginning a phase 2 trial for a new immunotherapy protocol that has shown promising results for patients with your exact profile. Would you be willing to discuss whether you might be a candidate? Time is of the essence, as the trial begins in 2 weeks." Sarah read the email 3 times, her heart racing. Dr. Chen was a renowned oncologist whose work Sarah had followed. The trial wasn't a miracle cure, nothness was, with stage 4 cancer, but it represented something she'd been losing: possibility. She forwarded the email to Dr. Patel before finally falling asleep as dawn broke by afternoon. Events were moving with startling speed. Dr. Patel had called Dr. Chen directly. Medical records were being transferred. Sarah was scheduled for a video consultation the following morning. "How did she even find you?" Miguel asked, helping Sarah prepare for the call. "Apparently one of her fellows is the brother of a blog reader," Sarah explained. "He recognized my cancer markers matched their study parameters." Her mother arrived to sit with her during the consultation, notebook in hand to record details Sarah might miss. They gathered around Sarah's laptop as Dr. Chen's face appeared on screen, a woman in her 50s with keen eyes and a direct manner that Sarah appreciated immediately. "Ms. Lawson, I've reviewed your records," Dr. Chen began, without preamble. "Your cancer's genetic profile and progression pattern make you an ideal candidate for our trial. I must emphasize that this is experimental treatment. We've seen promising results in phase 1, but no guarantees." "I understand," Sarah said. "What would be involved?" Dr. Chen outlined the protocol: a combination of targeted immunotherapy and a novel drug delivery system that could potentially reach cancer cells previously resistant to treatment. Sarah would need to travel to New York for initial treatment, then continue under Dr. Patel's supervision locally. "The biggest hurdle may be insurance," Dr. Chen admitted. "While the trial drug is covered, travel expenses and some procedures may not be." "Yeah, that won't be a problem," Sarah's mother interjected firmly. "We'll find a way." After the call ended, Sarah sat in stunned silence. For months, she'd been preparing for the end emotionally, practically, spiritually. Now, unexpectedly, a door had opened. Not to certain survival, but to possibility. "I'll call your father about finances," her mother said, already dialing. "Claire can research accommodations near the hospital." "Mom, wait," Sarah said. "I haven't decided yet." Her mother lowered the phone. "What's to decide? This could save your life. Or it could give me false hope and take away the quality time I have left," Sarah countered. "I need to think about this carefully." That evening, Sarah's apartment filled with her closest supporters, family, support group friends, Miguel, Elaine. They formed a circle around her living room, a council of love as she worked through her decision. "I've made peace with dying," Sarah admitted. "Part of me is afraid to hope again." "Hope doesn't require certainty," Elaine said. It's just leaving. The door opened to possibility. Your blog readers would understand either choice, Miguel added. You've always been honest about the complex reality of these decisions. Her father, who rarely spoke about emotional matters, cleared his throat. When you were 5, you fell from the big oak tree in the backyard, broke your arm in 2 places. In the ER, you looked up at me and said, "Next time, I'll climb higher." But wear elbow pads. That's who you are, Sarah. You've never been afraid to fall. Sarah smiled through tears. I'm still not afraid to fall. I'm just not sure I have the strength to climb again. You don't have to climb alone, her mother said, taking her hand. We're with you now. Really with you. 2 weeks later, Sarah sat in a treatment room at Memorial Sloan Kettering, her mother beside her as the first dose of the experimental drug entered her bloodstream. She opened her laptop and began a new blog post. Today marks a new chapter, not a guaranteed happy ending, but a continuation when I thought the story was finished. 1 year later, Sarah adjusted the silk scarf covering her still growing hair. Now, a soft inch of fuzz, rather than the complete baldness of the past end, smoothed her dress as she stood at the podium. The auditorium of the Cancer Center was filled to capacity for the Patient Advocacy Conference, where she'd been invited as the keynote speaker. In the front row sat her entire support system, her parents, Claire and her children, Miguel, Elaine, and several members from her support group. Even Dr. Patel had come, sitting beside Dr. Chen, who had flown in from New York for the occasion. A year ago, Sarah began, her voice stronger than it had been in months. I was preparing to die. Today, I stand before you in what my doctors cautiously call partial remission. The experimental treatment I received has reduced my tumors by 60%. I still have cancer. I still face an uncertain future. But I also have something I had lost: time. She paused, looking out at the audience, filled with patients, family members, and healthcare providers. My journey with cancer has taught me many things, but perhaps the most important is this: silence is not protection. When my family couldn't bear to speak about my cancer, when they changed the subject every time I mentioned my fears or symptoms, they thought they were shielding both of us from pain. Instead, they were building walls between us exactly when we needed connection most. Sarah glanced at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. Breaking that silence literally saved my life, first emotionally, through the blog and support group that kept me from drowning in isolation. Then physically, when a reader connected me to the clinical trial that has given me more time, but most importantly, breaking the silence healed relationships that cancer had fractured. She described the transformation in her family, how her mother now facilitated a support group for family members, how her father had joined a men's cancer caregivers group, how Claire had started a program at her children's school to help kids understand when a family member was seriously ill. The silence around illness doesn't protect anyone, Sarah continued. It compounds suffering by adding isolation to physical pain. When we can't speak our fears aloud, they grow more terrifying in the darkness of our minds. When we can't share our experiences honestly, we lose the chance for genuine connection in the time we have left, whether that's months or years or decades. After her speech, as people lined up to speak with her, Sarah noticed a young woman hanging back, clearly waiting until others had gone. She looked familiar somehow. "Sarah," the woman said finally, approaching, "you probably don't remember me. I'm Jennifer. We met briefly after your talk here last year, right after I was diagnosed." Sarah smiled in recognition. "Of course I remember. How are you doing?" "In remission," Jennifer said. 6 months now, but that's not why I wanted to talk to you. After we met, I started my own blog about being a young mother with cancer. It helped me, just like you said it would." She handed Sarah a business card with a blog title, "Cancer Mom, Finding Words for the Unspeakable." "Now I'm helping other parents figure out how to talk to their kids about cancer," Jennifer continued. "I never would have found the courage without your example." As Jennifer walked away, Sarah felt a familiar presence beside her. Miguel took her hand, squeezing gently. "Full circle," he said, nodding toward Jennifer. "Not quite a circle," Sarah corrected. "More like a spiral. We keep coming back to the same truths, but hopefully with greater wisdom each time." That evening, Sarah's family gathered for dinner at her parents' home. The table was set with her grandmother's china, the same table where, 18 months earlier, her mother had silenced her with, "We don't need to discuss your situation." How different things were now. Her mother openly asked about her latest scan results. Her father, discussed an article he'd read about new cancer treatments. Claire's daughters shared stories from the Cancer Awareness Club they'd started at their school. Cancer was no longer an unmentionable guest at their table, but a recognized presence not welcomed, certainly, but acknowledged without fear or shame. Sarah looked around at her family, imperfect, struggling, but present in a way they hadn't been before. She realized that while cancer had taken much from her, it had also given unexpected gifts: authenticity, deeper connections, the freedom of living without pretense. She didn't know how much time she had left: 6 months, 6 years, perhaps even decades, if the treatment continued working, but she knew with certainty that whatever time remained would be lived in truth, surrounded by people who could bear to hear it. "I have an idea for a new blog series," she announced as her mother served desserts. "About life in the in-between, not dying, not cured, but living with uncertainty. I think that would help a lot of people," her mother said, meeting her eyes directly. "Most of life is lived in the in-between, isn't it?" Sarah nodded, recognizing the wisdom in her mother's words. "Yes, and I don't want to miss a moment of it by pretending it's anything other than what it is."